official debate. The matters raised by the following deputies have been selected for discussion. 1. In the name of Deputy Gerry Adams, the need to get the British Government to honour its Western Park commitment regarding Mr Pat Finucane, and the deputy has an initial 4 minutes.
And Shaw Lynn Aishiach Lesh and Medj Al-Yori. Today, as we should know, is the 26th anniversary of the killing of human rights lawyer Pat Finucane. And I knew Pat very well. He was my lawyer, and I'm sure the Minister, as a lawyer himself, would understand that, and also that he was an excellent advocate for the rights of citizens and refused to be intimidated by threats from loyalists and RUC. Pat believed in the law. He believed that he could use the law to bring about people's rights and to create a way forward and to defend people. I want to commend Pat's wife Geraldine and their family for their unwavering courage and diligence in pursuing their demand for a public inquiry over all of these years. In 2001, there was a breakthrough when the British and Irish governments agreed at Western Parks to invite Judge Peter Corey to examine 4 cases. And Judge Corey concluded that 4 inquiries should be held, and 3 have taken place, including one by the government here. But the British government has refused to honour its commitment. And in October 2011, the British Prime Minister, further disappointed the Finucane family by dismissing an inquiry and appointed Desmond de Silva to review the case files. Now, the de Silva report was published in December 2012, and it revealed a shocking scale of collusion by the British and Unionist paramilitaries. It serves actually to reinforce the need for an inquiry into the killing of Pat Finucane. De Silva revealed that 85% of intelligence that the UDA used to target people for murder originated from British Army and RUC sources. Agents working for MI5, RUC Special Branch and British Military Intelligence were participating in criminality, including murder. This issue was also considered extensively at British Cabinet level. There was administrative and ministerial authority for these policies. The Director General, it was revealed, of MI5 briefed Margaret Thatcher in 1988. This is all fact. So the murder of Pat Finucane by state agents was not a one-off incident, it was the norm. Collusion was a matter of institutional and administrative practice by successive British governments, and lethal allies by Anne Cadwallader should be necessary reading for every Choctadala here. And she looks at the activities of one particular gang, the Glenanne gang. This practice involved the establishment, they actually set up Unionist paramilitary groups, the systematic infiltration by British system of all Unionist death squads at the highest level, the controlling and direction of these groups, their training, and they also provided them with information on people to be killed. This is based on a strategy developed by a man called Frank Kitson. He coined this phrase, counter gangs, that you set up counter gangs, and that's what they did in the north, as they did in other colonial places. They also helped to import weapons from the old South African apartheid regime, which killed hundreds of people, and I don't have the time here to bring you through the facts and detail of all of that. Now, in my view, the role of successive Irish governments, not just this one, but successive Irish governments, has not been as strategic or as consistent as it could be. I spoke to Theresa Villiers, the British Secretary of State, today by telephone, and among other things, I raised this issue with her, and I've raised it here in the Dáil countless times and elsewhere. And, you know, the Taoiseach tells me, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, I believe him, in fact, that he has raised this with the British Prime Minister. But I'm not satisfied that he's done it with the conviction that is required. It's clear that Mr Cameron will not willingly agree to a public inquiry. He actually ruled this out when I raised it with him in the company of the Taoiseach during the Stormont House talks, and incidentally the Taoiseach remained silent during that conversation. So it's little wonder that the British government behaves as it does. So I want to request that the government, and Tommy Cricknahan, I want to request that the government goes beyond the polite requests that are brushed aside, that we develop a strategy to employ the full resources of our diplomatic service to raise this case with our international friends at every opportunity, and to bring the case before the UN. I applaud the fact that the guinea pigs, the hooded men's case, is being taken to the European Court. We should raise it within the European Union. Our friends in the Government of the United States and every available international forum should know the Irish Government wants this case dealt with.
Thanks, Deputy Minister. Charlie Flanagan, the Minister has 4 minutes.
On this day, the 26th anniversary of the murder of Pat Finucane, I wish to express my sympathy, indeed on my own behalf and on behalf of members of the Government, to Mrs Geraldine Finucane and indeed all the Finucane family. That any family should witness the cold-blooded murder of a loved one is appalling. That their quest for a full and transparent truth about the horrendous events of that day, still ongoing, only compounds their sense of loss and grief. And that's why successive Irish governments have consistently supported the call on behalf of the Finucane family for a full, independent, public, judicial inquiry into the murder of Pat Finucane, in line with the commitments made by the Irish and British governments at Weston Park in 2001. As the deputies will be aware, this position has the cross-party support of this House, following an all-party motion of 2006, which called for the immediate establishment of such an inquiry. In October 2011, the British government announced that Desmond da Silva QC would conduct a legal review into the circumstances surrounding the murder of Pat Finucane. The review was proposed as an alternative to the public inquiry, which had been recommended by the Canadian judge, Judge Corey, in his independent report produced in accordance with the commitments of the Weston Park Agreement. The report of the Da Silva review was published in December 2012. The report found that there was state collusion in the case, and that, I quote, "a series of positive actions by employees of the state actively furthered and facilitated Pat Finucane's murder, and that in the aftermath of the murder there was a relentless attempt to defeat the ends of justice," unquote. In his statement to the House of Commons on the 12th of December 2012, Prime Minister Cameron accepted the report's findings of the shocking levels of state collusion and repeated his apology to the Finucane family. He disagreed, however, that a public inquiry would produce a fuller picture of what happened and what went wrong. Following the publication of the report, the Government reiterated our position on the need for an independent public inquiry into the murder, in accordance with the Weston Park Agreement and in accordance with the recommendation of Judge Corey. We continue to do so. As recently as yesterday, when I raised the issue during my meeting with the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Theresa Villers, she repeated, as I'm sure she did to Deputy Adams this afternoon, she repeated the current British Government's position that the clear findings of the Da Silva Review report and Prime Minister Cameron's public apology in the House of Commons constitute her government's response to the case, and that they do not intend to provide for a full public inquiry. I would note that following the publication of the Da Silva Review report, the opposition Labour Party in Britain indicated that they believe that a public inquiry is necessary for Pat Finucane's family and indeed for Northern Ireland. I also understand that the judicial review proceedings are currently being taken by Mrs Finucane in the High Court in Northern Ireland regarding the decision not to hold a public inquiry. So let me reiterate to Deputy Adams and indeed to the House, today is a particularly sad day for the Finucane family. I reiterate my condolences on their great loss. The Irish Government will continue to support them in their quest for a full public truth regarding the dreadful events of 26 years ago.
Minister, Deputy Adams, you have 2 minutes for a supplementary.
Well, let me say first of all I'm disappointed in the answer, Minister. Have we raised this at the UN? Have we raised this at the EU? Have we asked our ambassadors to lobby on this internationally? Have we raised this with the Obama administration in the White House? This is what governments are supposed to do, upholding the rights of citizens, is to use diplomatic services. You know, this counter-insurgency strategy in the North, read Frank Kitson, I commend it to you. Read Frank Kitson's book. It was honed over decades of colonial actions around the world. And at its core, he articulated, and I quote, that the law should be used as a weapon to get rid of unwanted members of the public. Now, here was an officer of the court, Pat Finucane, a human rights lawyer, who was got rid of. Not by, murder gangs, but at the direction under the administrative practice that the British government had cleared. And, report after report after report have lifted the lid on many actions. Now, we know that the peace process didn't happen by an act of divine mercy. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because people took risks and because people took chances and did appropriate steps. So we're not asking the government to take huge risks. A British government will be assisted. Remember, they've just had to open the books on the Mau Mau and their torture of Mau Mau detainees 40 years ago. They've just been forced recently to open the books on the people that they tortured in Palace Barracks outside Belfast. So this is good for the process of building the future. So I repeat, and I've said this many times, the British and Irish government are co-equal guarantors of all that has flowed from the Good Friday Agreement onwards, not junior partners, Minister. Co-equal guarantors. So I would repeat my call. I know sometimes I speak very directly, and I don't mean to be harsh, but it's the way I talk. We should launch a diplomatic initiative in the US, at the heart of the European Union, in the UN, on this and other cases. And we need to develop a strategy and a campaign to bring this about, and to use our status as having one of the most successful peace processes in modern times, and yet these issues continue to infect and to draw down and not to give people closure. So I would commend respectfully this approach to the Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. Minister Charlie Flanagan, 2 minutes.
I wish to make it quite clear to Deputy Adams and to everybody in the House and beyond that there is absolutely no ambivalence on the part of the government as far as this issue is concerned. We continue to make it absolutely clear in all circumstances that the position of the Irish government remains one of full support for a public inquiry in line with the commitments already agreed upon at Weston Park. That has been the position for many years and continues to be the position. And there is absolutely no movement in that regard. We made it quite clear as recently as yesterday that our position differs fundamentally from that of the British government. And could I say to Deputy Adams that this government will continue to support the Finucane family in whatever way possible in their quest to seek a full and transparent truth on this issue. In fact, my department will be represented this evening in Belfast with representatives of the Finucane family as the group marks the anniversary of the brutal murder. My officials have worked closely with the family. We will continue to work closely with the family, both in the context of our discussions with the British government and beyond. The officials from the department have been working during the course of Judge Corey's review at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, and we will continue through diplomatic channels and at every opportunity to continue to raise this issue so as the quest for justice and truth in this issue be brought to a conclusion and that the family and indeed the people of Northern Ireland receive closure.
Thanks, Minister. The second matter selected